I'd have to go into my ego for that, so I can't do that right now. Yeah, I'd have to go into my head for that. It's not what's coming up.
What's coming up? How are you feeling the energy today, right now?
I want people to know that what you're going through, you're not going through alone. And even though you might not understand the whole picture of what's going on, because none of us really do. Maybe there are a few people that do, but there are so few, they're the real exceptions. But we're all going through what we'll call something. Some of us have an understanding that that something is called the shift. It's the evolution, the human evolution, and the planet and all of us on it are going to either choose to be in the ascension process with Gaia, with Mother Earth, or not. We'll get to continue our journey elsewhere. So with all the anxiety that's going on and all the wondering and the fear, it's really fear. It's really hard to shift that when you're in the fear, and the only way I know to do that is through gratitude. It's through the desire to live in truth, whatever that truth is for you, to stay in your truth and in your heart of what is right for you. And sometimes the influence of people in our families or friends or work, but other humans, they might not be supporting you at this point because there are a lot of divisions going on. Perhaps if you are listening to this, you may be one of those people that are experiencing a lot of divisions and a lot of some losses in your life where you're just finding that the needs you have are no longer attracting in the old friends. That there's a need for something different. And you may not even know what that different is, but there's a sense, it's almost like a calling, there's this sense that something big is happening, something's happening, and we could say, oh, it's just that the world's ending. A lot of people want to just put it simply and say the world's ending, but I have to say that the world is not ending. It's not the apocalypse. I suppose it's the apocalypse in the sense that it's the world ending as we know it, but not ending in terms of everybody being blown up in the world. No, it's not. And even in the past, with the way that humans have been on and off this planet, Gaia has continued. So I don't think we have to worry about the earth, because she will heal, but she'll heal a lot faster if we start to cooperate with her. And if we don't, we're not going to be able to live on her, but she'll survive. So it really is for our own good. She wants to cooperate with us. We just have to give her a chance. But I really think that most of our, I go back to thinking about the struggles that we all face, no matter where you're at, whether you're religious, whether you're spiritual, whether you're agnostic, it doesn't really matter, but whatever struggle you're at, that all struggle comes from our unwillingness at some point to meet life on life's terms. And the terms of life are changing so much, we don't even know what they are anymore. It really means you have to be in the present moment, and whatever that term is, it's right now. But it may not be the same tomorrow. And life, as it's changing so quickly, in a time of change that I don't anticipate it's going to just suddenly stabilize it like it used to and just go back to the way things used to be. I remember in the 60s when we really thought there was going to be some great changes, and then it just boomeranged back, and it was like it never happened. And then we went in the other direction. So here we are, but it's not going to go that way this time. This time there is going to be the change. And it started with Mother Earth. So, and it's changing in our own thought system, our own perceptions, our own consciousness, our own feelings.
How is it personally affecting you, this shift?
Well, I can talk about how time has become really interesting. Well, first of all, this shift has made me realize that I'm spirit having a human experience, and I'm taking life a lot less seriously in some ways, in a lot of ways. Less seriously in the sense that I no longer believe in death. So for me, it's just everything's about transformation. So there is no risk anymore. There's no, the old fears come in, and they are old. But when I really am in the present moment and I'm in truth, like I'm conscious of being present, and I'm conscious of what my thoughts are. So if I have thoughts that aren't true, I can catch them and shift them. And when that happens, I don't allow my mind to just go down those roads. If I do, they're short-lived. Then I do forgiveness and I bounce back. Because that's all it is, it's a rewiring. So the faster we bounce back, the better the rewiring, that's all. It's just a matter of bouncing back faster. So you don't have to put yourself through so much torture before you get back to where you want to be. That sense of stability, that sense of feeling good about yourself. Because you have to have that, or nothing feels good. That's the truth.
How would you tell your clients to get to that state? How do you get there?
You have to go within. See, society has us all looking on the outside for the answers, and then if they're not the answers we want, we get into conflict and resistance with it. But the answers are within. But that also means that when life throws us a curveball, which it will, you're guaranteed that. You have to go inside for the answers. You can't look for the answers outside, because if you rely on an answer on the outside, then that answer can also dissolve. And then where are you again? Because it didn't come from you. It came from somebody else's idea, somebody else's truth. And our truths are even evolving, because as we're getting better at going inside and getting the clarity of that inner voice, that intuition, that higher self, there's so many names for it, but it's really, I think the easiest one for me is intuition, or you can think of your higher self, your spirit self, but something inside you that speaks to you, and it doesn't criticize you. It speaks to you usually in a gentle voice. It speaks to you in a way that you got to listen. You have to learn to listen to that voice. It's not going to be yelling at, that's your ego. It's not going to be yelling at you like your ego does. It's not going to be imitating your ego. It feels, and the experience of it is different. It's gentler. And it's just like, you may want to do this. It really encourages me to question the direction my ego is taking me. So first it's to recognize who you are and who you thought you were. Even that in itself, that's a huge change. your identity. This is an identity crisis. When you wake up, you realize you're not who you thought you were. Everything that you've learned about yourself in school and the history, everything, you just start to realize, oh my gosh, I need to question all of this now, and including my own identity. The wonderful thing is that you realize you're no longer stuck in that identity. So even though it might feel scary, it will feel scary probably at the beginning, because it's like, well, if I'm not this, then what am I? But see, at that point, when you're asking, who am I then? You're just beginning to really look for yourself for the first time, because you've just made all these, this is the way I am. Well, you've heard that before. Hey, this is just the way I am. Oh yeah, you were that way at 2 and at 4 and at 40. You know, come on, that's ridiculous. Nobody is just that way their whole lives. We're constantly changing whether we want to or not. What they're really saying is, just leave me alone. I want to stay this way and you're bothering me. So you have to interpret a little bit, but we get to formulate something different. We get to throw away the old beliefs that aren't working for us. When I say throw them away, we can't really throw them away, but we certainly can imagine putting them in a balloon and setting them free and releasing them, and replacing them right away with something that feels, that's right, that's true, that's positive, because God doesn't make junk. So if it's something that's negative, it's coming from your ego. You're easing God out, ego. And this is why you can't, until you understand who you are, how are you going to, if you're practicing self-love and all you're doing is loving your identity, but it's the false identity, it's not even who you really are, it's just your personality. That's how people end up in therapy for years, and you go, you've been in therapy for how long? And you think to yourself, and they haven't changed at all? Well, part of it is because they're trying to change the ego. Forget about that. And the ego was just formed based on what you thought was truth at the time, from the time you were born. Think about it. You didn't have any questioning minds or thoughts when you were born. Everything you took on was just imprinted and created. So have fun with that. Have fun with that, but also have fun knowing that you can now, you're free to create the being that you want to be, and not that everybody has told you to be a good person, or to be successful, or to be well-liked, or to be smart about things, or, the list goes on about the ways that these shoulds and coulds and woulds and pressures and societal influences have shaped us into becoming the person that we thought we were supposed to become. But then there's a crisis at some point where you realize, is this who I want to be, though? Now, for some people who they wanted to become, they became, and it was like a calling, it was a ministry, it was a knowing. But for most people, for a lot of people, that's not true. And it's not until they start to question their happiness and question what they really want to do inside, what really makes them passionate, what really makes them excited about life, and one with life instead of against life or struggling to change life, not liking life. You get to choose differently. You get to do it again differently. I don't care how old you are, because, hey, I bought my first home at 70, 71. Oh, no, 70. 70. My first home. So it's never too late. I have a whole video on how it's not too late. But just to share with you, whatever you want to do in life, if it's going to lift you up, it's going to lift the whole planet up, it's going to lift the whole community, it's going to lift everybody up that you come in contact with, because when you feel good, it's contagious. It really is, and it lifts everybody else up too.
Is that why you're doing this right now?
Well, I'm doing this because I really want to give people some insight into some of the struggles they may be having, and helping them to realize that you can't You're not doing anything wrong. You're not wrong. You are enough. You're not doing anything wrong. You're going through something that we're all going through, only some people are more aware of what's kind of going on, and in terms of energetically, planetarily, spiritually. And I'm not here to tell somebody what to believe or how to believe. I'm here because I really believe that people, they're great. They're here to be joyful. They're here to find their mojo. They're here to be peace so we can have peace on earth. To be joy so we can have joy on earth. To be the love that you are, that you were created by, that you are created for, and that you created with. You're it. And when we claim that and start to release these ideas that we were born a sinner and we're never going to be able to get past that unless we do X, Y, and Z, I got to tell you, I was there, but that's not how it is.
Can you share your story about that?
What's that?
Can you share your story?
Oh, yeah, I can share my story. Yes, actually, it's a good thing for me to share my story. So I was a born-again Christian, a fundamentalist for a while, and I went to an independent church, an independent Christian church, and it was a wonderful thing to really invite God into my life, and I that relationship with Jesus for me was just absolutely wonderful. I've always felt Jesus, even as a child, and I still do. My concept, but I no longer have the Christian belief system, that the doctrine and the dogma. I think everything that Jesus shared is truth. However, the doctrine and the dogma and how the church used his life as a way to control us, basically. And if you do your research, I just spend time doing your research, because that's what I did. Basically, at the time when I was in my early 20s, I was kicked out of the church because at the time I had a relationship with a woman, and they told me I had to go through a brainwashing program with drug addicts and alcoholics. And she was on her way to this country from Brazil, and I just said, that's not going to happen. That's the one thing I was not going to do, is not be there for her when she got off the plane and go into a brainwashing program. I understood the intention and where they were coming from, so I didn't feel bitter. Actually, it saved my life. I am eternally grateful that they turned me away because they gave me the freedom to start to seek answers, which when churches spoon feed you and tell you what to believe and how to believe it, it shuts your mind off and you become a sheeple. And so I studied the Bible under a theologian who worked at a Baptist seminary, who was a closet gay man, a librarian back then. And he was able to go through the Bible, and we studied the Bible together from the original language before it was changed and manipulated. And what I understood then was that God loved me just as I was. And I really understood that, not from the doctrine and dogma, but just from a spiritual place, and I knew that to be true. And one of the things that I also realized when I first became a Christian, the question in my mind that never left me, if you've had this question, it's a good thing. Because the question that I had in mind was, if God is love, it doesn't say he has love, it says is love. The very idea that we can recognize love is because of God, because God is love. It's not our love, it's God, love, inside of us. So you're not love. You can't make it. You can't produce it. You can't sell it, buy it. So the love that you recognize inside yourself is spirit, is God, is that God connection. what I realized, if God was love, there was no way that my love could be greater than God's or your love. And if you have a love for your child, and your child was even a serial killer or was gay or an alcoholic or a drug addict, would you send your child to eternity to die in an eternal fire called hell? Would you even do? Now, if you did, I think you should see a therapist if you would do that. But most people I know would not do that, and I know I wouldn't. And I'm not arrogant enough to say that my love is greater than God's. And if you hear what the typical Christian, when they don't have an answer for you, they'll say, that's a question, that's a question that all young Christians ask. They don't have an answer, so they make it about your being so young. You don't have the faith yet built in. No, it's the most important question you can ask. How can a God of love create hell? Think about that. Humans can create hell. Humans create hell every day. Watch TV, watch the news. That's hell on earth. We don't need God to create that. We create it. God would never do that. And how can you love a God or trust a God that would do that? Can you really trust a God that could send somebody to hell because they're not doing life the way he thinks they should? That's not unconditional love. That's conditional love. You do it my way or the highway. That's conditional love. This is a God of unconditional love. This is a God that loves you. No matter what you do. No matter what you do, it's unconditional. And yet the church makes it out to be conditional. Or yes, he's unconditional, but, there's always the buts. As long as you're in fear, you're constricted. As long as you're in fear, you're limited. As long as you're in fear, your body constricts. You feel lousy. Most people don't enjoy fear. I mean, kids do when they're little, the excitement, fear and excitement, really close, right? But most of us, when we get older, we really don't like the feeling. It doesn't feel good anymore. Yikes. Yeah, I don't like the feeling at all. And it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel good. Fear. False evidence appearing real. How much of your lifetime have you spent in fear over stuff that never happened and never was going to happen? Oh, I bet you for me it was years. And it can be a low grade concern, worry, and we don't even realize we're in fear. But you know how you know whether you're in fear or not? Ask yourself, am I in a place of love? That you know because you recognize love, because you are love. So ask yourself, am I in a place of love? No. That's how I know I've got that low-grade fear. That it's like a silent shutting down that comes in. It can even be from the collective. It can be around from other people. You're in a good mood, then you're around other people. You pick up on their energy. You respond to their energy because, after all, we are energy. And it impacts us. So that's kind of how I know when I'm not in a place of, I'm in a place of fear sometimes. It's almost like you feel neutral. Well, love isn't neutral. Love is, it can be quiet and still, and it can be exciting, and it can be a lot of things, but it's not indifferent. It's not shut down. The silence is in union and interconnectedness with nature, with what's around you, with the air you're breathing in. Listening for that internal voice. You know, if you haven't started meditating, meditation will help you to get there, really. And counting. The brain can only handle one thought at a time. And so what's helpful is that if you're counting, you're breathing, you can't have those thoughts that are intrusive, that come into your mind and get you off track or get you distracted or start to make you remember about things from the past that you'd really rather not think about, because you're not in the past. It's gone, it's over, let it go. That's what you have to tell yourself. You have to say, Jade, let it go. Let it go, because you know what? You're missing out on this moment, and this moment's beautiful. This moment I'm talking to, I don't know who I'm talking to, but I know that the love that I have inside my body is of spirit. It's of God. And if you're listening to this, there are no mistakes, there are no accidents.
Are you open to helping people? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, if you're looking for, a spiritual coach, a spiritual therapist, a spiritual psychotherapist, which is what I am technically, you can contact me by going, send me an email, and I'll get, and with instructions on how you want me to contact you and when the best times are, and I'll contact you. And you can send me an email to Jade Ritam, R-I-T-A-M, that's Jaderitam. Talk about crises of identity. How do I say my name? So, and that's at Gmail. So jaderitam@gmail.com. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Yeah, and the psychotherapy I do is, it's not your typical psychotherapy where you have to come every week, forever until you're done. And they make that stretch out for 2 or 3 or 4 years. I work differently. I work based on what your needs are. And as soon as you start to stabilize and start to get to a place where you're doing better on your own, we decrease the sessions until you're on only on an as needed basis. And that's the goal. And people who have been literally not so anxiety ridden and had so much OCD going on that was out of control that they weren't even able to work anymore, and they had to go home and live with their parents. Anybody who has ever had to do that, nobody wants to do that. But within 3 months, she was back at her job, and she was functioning. And within 6 months, I think she had a boyfriend and a full life, and it was just miraculous. And a lot of it is just starting. We've been trained to look outside ourselves, and the answers aren't there. And that's what was going on in this one particular case. Actually, in all the cases, we're all trained to look outside of ourselves. We haven't learned that what you think of me is none of my business. And so we're always looking for our answers outside, and we can't find them. They've got to come in. And so I just help people learn how to get access in here. Because your answers are in here. They're not in here in me for you. They're in you. And I help people to focus and take the time out of their day to do nothing but focus on them and get in touch with their feelings and get in touch with themselves inside. Because that's the only place you'll find it. Yeah.
And any advice you could give to people that are finding themselves in a spiritual crisis? Any last thoughts?
If you're in a spiritual crisis, you might not understand this, but if you're in a spiritual crisis, then I congratulate you. Because it takes a courageous person to allow themselves to be in that spiritual crisis, where out of that will come opportunities, will come an expansion that you can't even imagine. I never thought that this is what I was going to be doing at 71. It's just amazing what's going on for everybody. And just don't lose hope, because when we can't be found until we're lost. It's like you got to do the lost and then found. So if you feel lost, it means you're breaking down the old facades, the old you, and opening yourself up to more of the truth of who you are, and learning even what that is and who that is. What could be more important than you? Because you were brought here for a purpose and a reason. Your uniqueness, no one can replace you. You are here for a reason, with purpose. Whether you ever know that or not, it's okay. because thy will be done. Yeah. Just remember you're always loved. Always, 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 always. Beyond belief.